Welcome back to another segment of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. I'm your host, Sean Meyers, joined by Justin Lowery via Skype. We've already gone through the Raw recap. Now let's talk about Tuesday nights and SmackDown with the SmackDown summary. Justin, after what I would consider one of the better Raws of 2018, I thought SmackDown was decent in its own right. The one thing that I think really stood out to me was how many big names were not a part of the show, and yet it still felt, I should say, like it was a pretty well-constructed show, all things considered. When you talk about the guys who weren't there, Shinsuke Nakamura, although we'll get into that, he was intended to be there. AJ Styles, Samoa Joe. So you have some of the top guys not appearing, and you're still able to fill a 2-hour time slot with some pretty impressive matchups.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, some of those top stars were in Australia doing some promotion, I believe. Shinsuke, we'll get into, apparently got bit by a dog, which that's one of the most bizarre stories I guess you're going to hear probably in the wrestling business this year.
No, it wasn't Bailey, your dog, was it?
Oh, no, it wasn't Bailey, my dog. Apparently a police dog didn't really care for Shinsuke coming in security. And it's a bizarre story right there.
For me, you know what? I actually don't mind every now and then when you don't have some of the top stars there, because I think it freshens things up. Yes, you want those guys there 80-90% of the time, but when you have a show like this past Tuesday when Nakamura had to be written out of the storyline because of a legitimate injury, and then Samoa Joe not involved, AJ Styles, your champion, not involved, it gives other guys the opportunity. And you have a guy like Xavier Woods, who we'll get into, Rusev, who continues to develop as a main eventer, recently debuting Sanity, got plenty of time for their match. So the roster is deep enough, especially when you only have 2 hours on SmackDown, that you can have some of those mid-card guys or guys that are not utilized all the time certainly fill in more than capably.
Yes, and we actually forgot to say that Carmella wasn't there either. And Mella is money, Sean.
Well, she wasn't there, but James Ellsworth was there.
Right, which don't get me started on him.
We won't get started on him.
Okay,
we will get started on what was, I would say, pretty shocking as far as the conclusion to SmackDown. It was the Bludgeon Brothers, and specifically Luke Harper, going against Daniel Bryan. And this was a confusing storyline to me, and I posed the question last week, where does it go? Because you have your tag team champions, the guys who have been absolutely dominant, and they're going against seemingly one of the top single stars in Daniel Bryan, who at the time had really no allegiances, no one that could come in and really fill in as a tag team partner for him. So I speculated maybe this is the Miz using some hired guns. Ultimately, you're going to get the Miz and Daniel Bryan, but Daniel Bryan would have to go through the Bludgeon Brothers first. We still might see that. However, there's a lot more clarity after this past Tuesday because, of course, Daniel Bryan and Luke Harper was interrupted by Eric Rowan. So it's 2-on-1, Bludgeon Brothers beat down of Daniel Bryan until we hear Kane's music and the big red monster makes his return after a few months off of television. By the way, he was on Raw last time we saw him, right?
Yes. I'm pretty sure, right?
Well, yeah, now he's on SmackDown. Whatever. No explanation.
Don't worry about
Yeah,
it.
they just do whatever. So he comes out, helps Daniel Bryan, and then they have the hug that was so famous from years ago when they were a odd couple pairing. It was sort of a flashback to, about 4 or 5 years ago before Daniel Bryan got really hot as a single star. It seems like it's one of those fun moments, and I think the fans enjoyed it. My concern, however, Justin, is do you really want Daniel Bryan in a tag team with Kane for more than a couple of weeks? If this is a long-term thing that might span the next 3-4 months beyond SummerSlam, it seems like sort of a waste of his ability. And with so many other tag teams, the Bludgeon Brothers could be more than occupied with the other legitimate teams. So it seems kind of bizarre that they set this up. Even though it got a good reaction, it's one of those surprise moments. Long term, I don't want to see this, really.
I totally agree. After, went off the air, I got on Twitter to see some of the reactions. And all these people were, very excited. Kane, oh yeah, Kane's back. Look, I don't get it. I don't get why people in 2018 want to see Kane wrestle, get excited for Kane. And for the same reason, I don't get why people get excited for The Undertaker to wrestle now. These guys were big stars 10, 15, even 20 years ago. I don't really care for them much now. In a short burst, Team Hell No for like 2-3 weeks, there'll probably be some great comedy segments. You'll get a little chuckle, but honestly, after Extreme Rules, I don't need to see it. Kane comes back for like 3 or 4 weeks at a time, disappears for 3 months. I know he's running for mayor. Did he win? I guess not. I don't even know when that election is happening because I've been hearing it for like 2 years. And, and he's
I could be wrong, but I think he maybe won the primary, and then the general election, I would guess, would be in November.
It's November? I don't know. Honestly, I don't keep up with that stuff. I'm guessing it's something for Daniel Bryan to do because, again, he has not signed a new deal. His deal runs through September. So I think until they know what they're going to do with him, they're just going to tread some water with him. My fear is I do not want them to win the tag team belts. It would just be, I think that would be a step back for the Bludgeon Brothers. They're a legit tag team right now. Let them keep dominating, lose the titles eventually to an actual tag team, not one that's thrown together for the next month or two. Because the end game has to be Bryan and The Miz at SummerSlam, right?
Well, that's what I was going to say. If you have Kane involved, how do you get him out of the picture quickly enough to have Daniel Bryan and The Miz go at it? Because unless they literally only do this for a couple weeks, I would say, knowing WWE, it almost might be more likely to either have this feud continue until SummerSlam with the tag team, or have Kane turn on Daniel Bryan and they pick right back up where they left off years ago when Daniel Bryan first got injured doing a program with Kane. I would say both of those seem more likely short term than something with The Miz.
Does anybody want to see Bryan versus Kane? I mean, that doesn't do anything for me. Everybody wants to see Bryan versus The Miz. And it has to be SummerSlam, because if not SummerSlam, then what? Then when? Are we never going to get it? Are we going to get it? It's time. I don't know. The whole Team Hell No doesn't do much for me.
Daniel Bryan, you hope that he has a long career after coming back. But if you're working under the assumption that it could only be maybe a year or two that he's able to wrestle full time, you have Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Nakamura. How do you not have him pound out those feuds all over the next 8 to 12 months?
100%. Those guys on a Smackdown roster. And then before you retire, I want to see him and Rollins wrestle each other. I mean, how amazing would that match be, especially at Rollins' level right now? There's a list of guys I would love to see him wrestle. I hope that we get that opportunity. But I guess, the rumor is that he wants creative control in his contract, and that's the holdup. And apparently it's Cena who's telling him to do that. And if I'm Bryan, I guess I understand, you don't want to not be used right. Especially he's been kind of screwed over before.
But that happens to everyone. I mean, that happens to, whether it be Randy Orton or Hall of Famers still have that. I mean, other than Brock Lesnar, do you think Roman was happy to be going against Jinder? I mean, truthfully, I understand fighting for your rights heading into a contract, but that happens to pretty much anyone, doesn't it?
But true, but I think where Daniel Bryan I think he's also seeing that there's life outside of the WWE, and we at some point hopefully we can do a segment on this stuff, like what's going on outside. He knows that there's money to be made outside of WWE, especially with him. He can go on any independent scene, any promotion, and command top dollar. He can go over to Japan and have dream matches over there and make tons of money. So, I mean, he has options.
We'll have to wait and see what happens with Daniel Bryan. As of now, we already know he's challenging along with Kane for the tag team titles at Extreme Rules. Sort of bizarre that they made that match literally minutes after Kane returned. Nonetheless, that was the way that Smackdown closed out. One of the other big matches also involved some tag teams. It was the in-ring debut of Sanity as they went against the makeshift trio of Jimmy and Jay, the Usos, and Jeff Hardy, the United States champion. Hardy originally slated to face Nakamura because of Nakamura's injury from the dog bite that Justin referenced, and it seems like that shouldn't be a long-term injury. They had to kind of shift things around, so they had Jeff Hardy do an open challenge with the title, and the person who responded was Eric Young of Sanity. That match sort of got interrupted by a brawl outside, so they make it into a six-man. So we see the in-ring debut of Sanity, and this is a team that, Justin, we'll get into this in a second, but one that I'm not particularly high on, but they certainly could have a useful role. That being said, for them to lose cleanly in their debut match is a little bizarre. I know that the Usos are great, maybe the best tag team in the entire company, and that's saying something. And Jeff Hardy, of course, a very talented United States champion who gets great reactions from the crowd, especially now that he's gone back to the old vintage face paint look. However, clean loss for Sanity, maybe not a great sign of things to come. I'm sure they'll rebound, but that's pretty atypical for a team. If you have any hopes and aspirations, typically when you're making your in-ring debut, you don't want to be losing.
Yeah, normally most teams when they make their debut is usually a victory. The fact that they lost probably is not a good sign for their longevity. I'm not as low on them as a team as you are, but it's not like I think these guys are destined for greatness. I think they're going to be a mid-card act. I do think they have a title reign in them before they break up and do their own thing. Eric Young, I never cared for him when he was in TNA, and when he signed to NXT, I did not understand the signing. I will say I've enjoyed him more than I thought I would have. I thought I wouldn't enjoy him at all. So,
well, when he signed with NXT, the first thing I said is, I don't like this guy, but put him on the main roster. Don't waste his time and don't spurt the growth of younger competitors in NXT by having him take up time. So, if anything, him being on the main roster is better than him being in developmental.
Oh yes,
but tell me, I know you said that you're not real high on them, but why should I enjoy Sanity? What stands out to you? Because to me, Wolf's very average. Dane has some talent, but he doesn't, to me, stick out as a great heavyweight guy that I just have to see destroy people like I would with a Braun Strowman, for instance.
For me, they're just different. I do like their entrance. I like their music. They are missing Nikki Cross. I do miss her coming out with them. I'm a big fan of hers. So, that kind of sucks. But it's probably better for her that she's not with them. Just how Carmella was better for her that she didn't come up with Big Cass and Enzo, because, those guys did real well. They're different. I like to see different personalities, different gimmicks, different looks. And I do like the fact that there's a lot of, they're a trio. The New Day's a trio. I do like groups of three. I am into that.
Well, one reason why I think that Sanity will be okay in the long run, or at least have a useful role, is because the New Day, that has to loom as a potential feud down the road, because when the Shield was together, it was sometimes tough to find three opponents for them. And then the Wyatts came along, and it was great. And then you had a few other trios like 3MB, but generally, the New Day has also had that same issue where they don't have great six-man matches very often, because a lot of times they just operate as a tag team with two of the three being in there. So this is a good opportunity, you would think, sooner or later, for a six-man feud that really could show the talents of everyone involved, especially the New Day, because they are magical as a trio. They're great as a tag team. They're showing their individual abilities now that we'll get to. But as a trio against Sanity, that could be really where they stand out.
Oh, no, I agree. But for that to happen, Sanity is going to have to be pushed pretty well. No one's going to buy them as a threat to the New Day if they lose, every 2 out of 3 matches. But that could be a very nice build-up, maybe a Survivor Series type of match. Given a couple months of a build, I think I would be entertained by it.
Talking about the New Day, that transitions into the other thing that we wanted to highlight from Smackdown this week. It was the continued elevation, the push, if you will, of Rusev, as he got a very nice victory over Xavier Woods. And while on paper maybe that doesn't look like a big win for Rusev, I thought it was a very entertaining match. Woods continues to deliver. And when he debuted, I didn't have high hopes for him, but he continues to put on great matches, and Rusev, the beneficiary of that. Rusev's probably not a guy that many expected to be challenging for a title at this point, but he's the #1 contender. He has a feud upcoming with AJ Styles, and it's going to take place with the title on the line in Pittsburgh at Extreme Rules. Is Rusev being built up quick enough to be a legitimate contender? Are you buying this storyline, Justin, that he can be a real threat to AJ Styles, or is it sort of just filling a gap until AJ has probably a bigger contender for SummerSlam?
Oh, it's filling a gap. I'm happy he has a shot. I think he deserves the shot. But it almost reminds me of the R-Truth. You know, he had that one pay-per-view, like a B-level pay-per-view when he fought Cena for the title. I mean, yeah, it was nice to see a fresh face, but no one, everyone knew he didn't have a shot. I mean, I give Rusev more of a shot than that, but I don't see him holding the title going into SummerSlam. I mean, AJ's the guy that's going to go into SummerSlam with the title. This is just something to get AJ to SummerSlam and whatever they have planned for him at SummerSlam. That said, a good showing by him against AJ might put him in the picture long term. I mean, he's a guy that could, have a run with the belt. I don't think people would object to that. He's been damaged. He's rebuilt his image, very well. I think without the help of the WWE really behind him, he's kind of did it on his own. And I actually think having him on Total Divas has been a plus for him.
But that could be a negative, kind of getting over on your own when you're in WWE, right? I mean,
well, I think he has been punished a little bit because Rusev Day chants for the last couple months have been pretty through the roof, and they didn't really push it. Like, instead of like, oh, the fans are chanting this, let's run with it. It seems they wanted to scale it back by, even having English start rapping so that the fans couldn't really sing along with it. It's hard to do that with the rap, and that's why they had him start rapping. If they want him to be a heel, that's fine. I get that. But I don't think they're totally sold on him. And that's why I think this match with AJ is very important for him. Because, if he goes out there and kind of lays a stinker, he's probably not going to sniff this spot again.
Well, let me kind of follow up on your point then, Justin. Is it a little suspicious that they are presenting him as a heel and having him go against the top face on SmackDown and AJ Styles? Is this sort of their way of maybe trying to quell the positive fan reaction towards him? Yeah. Because if that's the case, then you're sort of not taking advantage of a lot of money that could be made potentially, it feels like.
And that's why I don't get about stuff like that. Okay, you get a chant that gets over. You have a gimmick that gets over. Sell the merch. Like, isn't that what they want? Like, if you could sell it, run with it. Make money off of it. Vince McMahon says, he listens to the fans. The guys grab the ring and run with it. Well, he kind of made his own ring, grabbed it, and, Vince and company are like, no. I mean, it doesn't seem to be as bad as Zack Ryder, who famously got himself over on his own. The crowd loved him, and they squashed that really quick because, they want you over if they want you over. You can't get over on your own unless they want you to get over, and that's what sucks.
So good win for Rusev, and I'm with you. It's nice to have a little change of pace here with a guy that's not typically a main eventer challenging for a title. And I even thought that his match against Xavier, that's not a typical marquee matchup, but for the fans that watch every week, they know how good those guys are in the ring, and got a good reaction. Anything else that you took away from SmackDown? Again, devoid of some of the big names. No AJ Styles, no Nakamura, no Samoa Joe. Seems like maybe they're saving some of these biggest storylines for when SummerSlam gets here. I get that feeling way more on SmackDown than I do watching Monday Night Raw.
Yeah. You know what stood out for me, and maybe because I am a fan, Becky Lynch. I watched her match, and I thought it was a pretty solid match, with somebody who's very fresh and new, and it was good to get her in the ring with Becky. And especially now since Charlotte is going to be out for the next couple months, like maybe 6 to 8 weeks after her surgery, and not having Carmella there to take out a segment, I'm happy to see Becky Lynch. I wish she was featured more. I think she's a great talent, and I love her entrance. And I would love to see her.
Do you have the glasses, the goggles at home?
I should go get a pair because I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan of hers, and it was just nice to see her get, like, I think about a 10-minute match. And the women of Glow, because I'll be honest, I do watch Glow on Netflix.
You know what? I need to start watching that. I'm behind on a lot of other things that I need to catch up on first, but nice little plug there. Although I will say, Naomi and Lana, that was just awkward. That's weird.
Well, those backstage segments with whether it's a group of people or an actor or actress there to promote something, it's always very awkward and forced. You can totally tell, people don't know exactly what to do. I mean, Lana's a horrible actress in general, so any of her segments are like a little but it was still nice to see, But yeah, definitely check out Glow. Parma, awesome, Amazing Kong is, in that,
Nice.
John Morrison, yeah.
One thing that I was disappointed on SmackDown, and I can't say I'm surprised, was the again absence of Andrade Cien Almas from in-ring competition. This is a guy that showed that he is one of the best in-ring workers in the entire company in NXT. I think that they did a pretty decent job building him up for his debut. Had some good showings, albeit against jobbers. He's that good that he can make those squash matches look impressive. And then they were going to start a storyline with Sin Cara, and it just doesn't seem like it's working. I don't know if there's actual legitimate issues that's preventing that from happening. But you have Andrade there backstage and Zelina Vega, who everyone loves, just cutting promos, but it just doesn't seem to lead to anything. Even if he was wrestling against Sin Cara, I want this guy doing more. I want him in the ring every single week, and I don't think he has to be main event right away, but put him against some pretty good workers and let him have 10, 15 minutes to show his ability.
Yeah, have him against, like, Kofi. That would probably be a fun
That's perfect. We just saw Woods show his ability to put over a guy in Rusev. It's not going to kill the New Day to have that. Kofi, no. Yeah, Kofi and Andrade Cien, that would be perfect.
Yeah, to start, I mean, think of him and AJ wrestling, or him and Bryan, wrestling. I mean, this dude's incredible, what he can do in the ring. I hope they don't, screw it up. I think they probably will. But like, I think it also shows they call these guys up from NXT and don't really have a storyline ready to go. This is like, oh, okay, we're bringing them up. Okay, what should we do? I mean, have you noticed too who hasn't been on SmackDown in weeks? The Bar. Like, they were huge on Raw. They get moved over to SmackDown, and they're nowhere to be seen. It's very weird. But when creative has nothing for you, and that's what happens.
Well, that's going to do it for the SmackDown summary. That's co-host Justin Lowery. I'm Sean Meyers. Stick around, though. We have one more segment we'll get to. Yes, we will have the trending topics. This week we're going to touch very quickly on a couple of big TV and WWE Network developments involving Monday Night Raw's new contract, as well as a new show coming to the network. But that's going to do it here for the SmackDown summary. We'll be back with trending topics here on the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling.